The music's on, the disco ball has dropped, and it's time to get this party started. You're listening to episode 22 of DiscoTrek, a Star Trek Discovery After Party podcast here on the Tricorder Transmissions Network. I'm your host, Heather Barker, and with me, as always, is my co-host, the amazing Jeff Hewlett. Hi, Jeff. How you doing?
Hey, Heather. I'm doing pretty good. It's been a while since we did one of these, so happy to be back.
It's been a while. We talked about Stamets last time, and now we're going to talk about another of my favorite characters, although let's just be honest, I think all of the Discovery characters are my favorite character. For those of you who aren't familiar with DiscoTrek, we're a community-based Star Trek podcast focusing on each episode of Star Trek Discovery as they air. However, with the first season gone and in the past, we are doing character deep dives. So tonight we will be focusing on the character of L'Rell, played by Mary Chieffo. With us to talk about the episode are two members of the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas convention group on Facebook, which is the exclusive gateway to gain admission onto the show. Our first guest is Annika Dane, aka Pixie. Welcome. We're so happy to have you.
I'm very happy to be here.
Yay!
Yay!
And our next guest is one of the infamous / famous Trekkie girls. It is Sam. Hi, Sam.
Hi, Heather. Thank you very much for having me on DiscoTrek. I'm very excited to be here.
We are excited to have both of you. I was not surprised at all that we have a woman strong panel here tonight. And we still have, one dude hanging out who has great things to say about L'Rell, I'm sure. We're going to hop into our discussion about L'Rell here in just a second. But first, we have some light housekeeping to take care of. Typically, DiscoTrek. Okay, let me start over with that. One day I'll know how to do this thing. Okay, 3, 2, 1. DiscoTrek, as we said, is a community-focused podcast that evolved from our desire to give fans in our convention community a way to talk about Star Trek Discovery. So right now we're doing monthly podcast character deep dives. What you'll want to do is join the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas convention group on Facebook. Once you're in that group, keep an eye out for our posts announcing recording times, which character we'll be talking about. Leave a comment. That will be your entry, and then we'll use a random generator about a week later to pick 2 winners. And once you've been on the podcast, you can come back for now. When we're doing episodes, we tend to limit who we have so that everybody gets a chance. But with these character deep dives, it's a free-for-all. So we hope that you guys will join us. We also have a Patreon. And Jeff, do you want to tell us a little bit about Patreon? And I think we've got some new Patreon members.
Yeah, so if you're interested in becoming a patron, you can find that on patreon.com/the Tricorder Transmissions, or by visiting our website and clicking the Patreon link in the upper right-hand corner. That's the tricordertransmissions.com. So if you enjoy what we do here on DiscoTrek or any of our other Tricorder Transmission shows, if you're a listener to any of those, please consider joining our family of patrons that's growing and growing. So becoming a patron will give you instant access to our unedited and early release episodes. We tend to put out several of those every week, and often with bonus material before or after or in the middle. And we're also having monthly Trek chats exclusively for our Patreon supporters, so look for those invites going out if you're amongst our family. And finally, we also have an exclusive pin that will be sent to you if you sign up at any pledge level. So all those are great benefits, and we do have a new patron. Adam Sutton has signed up to become a new patron a couple of days ago, so thank you, Adam, if you're a listener to DiscoTrek. Hopefully you are and you hear this. And didn't we have one person who also up there? Is it Rick Willamette up this pledge level?
Yeah, I believe so, which was super awesome and a delight. So thank you so much, Rick.
Yeah, very cool.
We are at 49 patrons, which means we're almost at 50. So who will be our 50th patron? Maybe by the time this episode is released, we'll have 50, and it'll be a giant party.
Yes, we will have a huge party for that.
Yeah, meaning that we'll shout out on social media and send you an e-hug and stuff like that. We'll have a party next year at STLV. You'll have to come join us. All right. So it's time to get this party started, like I said. Keep in mind, there will be spoilers. Like, season 1 is over. If you haven't picked it up yet, the Blu-ray drops in November. Mm-hmm. But go ahead, stop listening, go watch Discovery and come back, because spoiler heavy, Laurel herself comes with lots of spoilers about the show. So let's go ahead and jump right in. I know for me that Laurel is just one of the most phenomenal characters to have in Discovery, but she has very quickly become one of my favorite characters in all of Star Trek. She is right now setting a precedent for the women of, for Klingon women everywhere. So I wanted to get everyone's first reaction to the character. She had quite an adventure in this first season, going from supporting Takuma, who died, to becoming captain of a prison ship, getting demoted, helping Voq rise to power, sort of, kind of, didn't really happen. But at the end of the day, now she's got the High Council leadership position, which we'll see more of in season 2. So, Sam, what do you think about Laurel? How did you feel about her over this first season?
Oh, I have so much to say about Laurel, but in terms of my first reaction to Laurel, it was interesting because what made Discovery different altogether, and Laurel with that, was that we got to know the actors before the characters, and I think that made things a bit more complex, because I remember I was very privileged to meet Mary Chaffo at Star Trek Las Vegas at the 50th anniversary. It must have been when they first came, and she was lovely and wonderful. Was it the 50th or was it the year after? I can't remember now. No, it must have been the year after.
I think it was 2006. No, that would have, yeah, wait, 2017 then.
17,
okay.
Yes, because it aired 2017, and then a month later it came on. Yeah, and she was just wonderful, and you could just see that she had this absolute passion for this character, which made me really thirsty to know who Laurel was, what she was about. So I was very intrigued before the series started, which we've never had with any other Star Trek series, or I haven't experienced with any other Star Trek series. And the first few episodes, I remember thinking, I can't make heads or tails of her. I don't know whether she's a goodie or a baddie, and that's kind of where I've gone throughout the whole series 1. I've realised I've been judging her by my own human standards, and that's something I've been enjoying exploring whilst researching for this subject and doing this deep dive into Laurel. Who is she? That is kind of Laurel, isn't it? Who is she? What does she want? What's she trying to achieve? Did things go the way as planned? Are things working out for her, or is she just riding the wave? So that was kind of my initial, very brief response to Laurel at first.
Awesome. Annika, what did you think about Laurel when you first met her?
Well, when I first met her, I mean, I was intrigued by her right away. I thought all of the Klingons, had this weird, I was excited that they were very foreign, I guess is what I'll call it, that they were very non-human. Right off the bat, they weren't our friendly Worf Klingons. That we'd gotten used to with all of the TNG, DS9, Voyager era. And I was excited that there was going to be, this girl Klingon who was going to be a big part of it. And so I was really excited for her. And then as the season went on, it seemed like every time she was on screen, she was a new Laurel. There was like Laurel, and then Laurel 2.0, and then Laurel 3.0. and she just kept gaining layers. And at first I was sort of annoyed at it because I really wanted to know who she was. And it seemed like she was just changing her personality. But that's actually one of my favorite character types. Like, the difficult characters in series, the characters that even the storyline sometimes doesn't seem to know what to do with, and so they they get sort of thrown around, but I just think that makes them actually more complex. And I have a lot of fun sort of trying to make it all make sense in my head, that even if they seem to be acting quote unquote out of character, it's actually just like a different layer of complexity. And I think Laurel really lent herself to that idea. And by the end, I was like, yes, I'm Team Klingon, and I'm gonna go be with her. And because I was just very excited to see her like gain that notoriety and really sort of ascend to where she belongs. Even though she doesn't really believe it, like she has to be convinced.
Yeah. Jeff, what about you?
Well, I'm in the same boat as Annika, but I'm going to kind of tackle this from a DiscoTrek perspective. And I think one of my favorite parts about the character was all the times that we talked about all of her twists and turns and speculating about who she really was, what her motives were. And she kept us and all of our guests guessing throughout the entire arc of the season. And then kind of when it all wrapped up, we were like, we kind of theorized about some of this. It kind of wound up sort of how we thought it might, but there were some differences there that I'm sure we'll get into later on in the show. But that was one of the fun parts of DiscoTrek the whole season, was speculating about where she was going to go, what she was really working on, what she was doing behind the scenes. And every time she popped up, there were new questions to ask and no real solid answers until we got close to the end.
Yeah, I knew like immediately within the first few episodes that I was absolutely in love with this character. I loved the fact that we didn't know what her motives were, but she definitely seemed to have them. Like she was on a mission. I felt there were plans being made. When it got to bringing Vogue into the storyline, it was obvious that she wasn't going to. Let's say, I'm trying to think of the right word to explain it. Like she says, she doesn't want to be the leader of the Klingon Empire. She doesn't want to be the person in the forefront. She kind of wants to be the person in the shadows, the manipulator even. And then again, we do kind of lose a bit of her within that mid-season where there's some different things going on with other characters. And so we don't see a lot from her. It's snippets here or there, but I don't know. So here's my question. Like what I saw with her over this first season was, like I said, in the beginning, I felt that she had a plan. She knew where she wanted to go. I don't quite know that I still don't know what exactly her plan was. However, I think that she took these steps and was propelled by the choices that she made, even just like hopping onto, what was it, Tyler, when she got transported onto Discovery. By the end of the season, she wound up in the place that I expected her to be, just in not the way that I expected to see it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I think that makes perfect sense, Heather, and I'm really glad you brought up some of those points. If I may hop in at that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. When you said about how Laurel didn't seek power, she wanted to be the person behind the scenes. This is the bit that really intrigues me about Laurel, and the moment I really, really, really fell in love with her was. I mean, I loved her from the beginning, but the moment that really, really felt amazing to me was at the end when she was suddenly the Chancellor of the Klingon Empire, and I think it's interesting that my background's in politics. I worked in politics, and so watching her storyline develop and trying to think of it from a Klingon point of view, if you think about it, I think Laurel is like a maverick politician in Klingon terms. If you look she's from the House of Mokai, isn't she? The Mokai and Tukufma.
Yep.
And she said very early on, didn't she, that she wasn't going to choose between how she was going to build a bridge between them both. And and the words they used to describe the House of Mokai was watchers and deceivers and weavers of lies. And if you think about politicians and perhaps use other words, if you use other words like observers, enticer, smooth operator, those could be human standard words for a politician, although some humans might use those words to describe our politicians too. So I wonder whether she maybe is just a natural politician at heart, but those aren't qualities that are admired by Klingons. I think Gowron used to get a lot of stick for that, didn't he? That he wasn't a warrior, he was a politician.
Especially being a Klingon woman.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of the reason why I've really drawn to her as well, because I recently just saw Ali, a 22-year-old Trekkie on Twitter. She wrote that she just found out that Mary is 22 in real life, which I don't know why. I assume everyone's the exact same age as me. But I was 22 when I first got elected, so sort of seeing her in the council chamber there, it kind of, I felt that sort of made up connection that I applied to myself. And sort of thinking, oh my gosh, how scary that must be for her, but how much courage she needed. I mean, I didn't have a device that was going to blow up the whole planet to take it. Would have been easier. So I kind of like the way that's kind of my impression of it, is by applying Klingon standards to the political system.
No, I think that's incredibly interesting. I love putting a political sheen on it. I think that's like such a great way of looking at it, and that it is personal to you. And I just wanted to, so on my Twitter, my bio is social justice Klingon warrior princess. And I just, which I've had for years, but that's what L'Rell is by the end of Discovery. Like, she is the social justice Klingon warrior princess. And so I just got really excited that she sort of, I don't know, embodied something that I was, aspiring towards. And it is interesting that she's so young, and it reminds me a little bit of in I think it's the 6th movie is the Undiscovered Country, where the daughter of the Chancellor ends up Chancellor just because she sort of inherits it. And that character has 3 lines, but of course I love her, and and I always wanted to know everything more about her, and it strikes me as sort of the same, you're thrust into this position that you may or may not have wanted, but you're a Klingon, and so you're gonna do it, and I think that's there's it's that Klingon honor, and it's quieter than shouting and having duels to get power, but it's almost more powerful in that way.
It's there's just something about the character that is L'Rell / Klingon women / Mary herself, and just because Mary corrected Ali, I'll just so Mary's 25.
My apologies.
No, it's okay. I just want to, since she corrected, I felt I would as well. I mean, it's a 3-year difference, so it's not mine. It's but still, that is a young age, and Mary herself is just I can't even believe that Mary is 25. I'm 37, and I'm like, Mary has the wisdom of an old crone, but looks like this young, beautiful.
She's brilliant.
She just has such presence herself that I cannot imagine this character having been brought to life by any other actor. And a large part of it, and this is the kind of side note tangent thing, but the way that Mary is able to command, she has just such a commanding presence. And as a viewer, I am like entranced watching her. There is just something about the way that she is able to emote with, with her face, with her eyes, through all of these prosthetics that just is captivating to watch. But then the way that she brings Laurel to life.
Can I just add one thing to that? That it's amazing how much acting, like physical acting, she does with her eyes, and the way that she looks and moves, despite all of the prosthetics and like the ridiculously heavy costuming. It's just amazing to me how much life Laurel has.
Yeah.
Under all of that.
When I see her on screen, I never once think that she is a human being in prosthetics.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that for me is monumental with Star Trek, especially when I was younger, before I was a Trekkie and I was watching Star Trek on television, I sometimes struggled. And every now and then I still do with actors who, like, I see the actor and I don't see the full character. And so that kind of pulls me out of that scene or that character experience or whatnot. Whereas somehow Mary has been able to just, it's a work of art. I don't know how else to say it. Go ahead, Jeff.
No, that's actually a really good point because, throwing back to Star Trek 6, General Chang was General Chang, but it was totally Christopher Plummer in makeup. And Star Trek 3, Christopher Lloyd played an amazing Klingon, but it was so obviously Christopher Lloyd makeup. But, Mary was not that way at all as Laurel. I don't look at that character and say, that's Mary Chieffo in makeup.
I think that the quality of the prosthetics also is just a large part of it. So props to Glenn Hetrick and Neville Page for bringing these Klingons to life, because the fact that they are so alien looking, I think helps create a better alien. They don't look like a human being in Klingon makeup. They look like a Klingon. And so again, just absolutely captivating. But the point I was trying to make before I went off on my random tangent, I'm speaking for myself here, and the two of you can chime in as women, but I admire Klingon women so much because, like, immediately they are just like brazen, strong, empowered women. Like I don't know a Klingon woman who is not, a product of agency, I guess. Like they're confident, they are commanding in presence, and this is in a patriarchy. So this is where they're struggling to really find a place. And now we have Laurel that is basically, as I said, setting a precedent for other Klingon women to come. And doing my research, revisiting some of the articles that came out back during the first season, I know that for me, like, Laurel reminds me a lot of Grilka. And so I was really happy to find that, Grilka was one of Mary Chieffo's inspirations in developing Laurel, as well as I think Kalar and the Duras sisters. But sometimes the Duras sisters get a little bit too jokey for me. Like they're not elevated in the way that a character like Grilka or Kalar is. So I am automatically drawn to Klingons in this way. And I think it's interesting talking about politics and how, as a politician, she's different. Like women politicians, I think, are somewhat different from men politicians, and how they scheme and deliver. So I really like that point. But I'm curious, are the two of you drawn to Klingon as women, or is it just a thing that I have?
I'm with you there, Heather. There is something about them. I've been a Star Trek fan my whole life. I was born this way, and there is something about Klingon women that I tell you what I like about Klingon women, and there's lots of things I like them, but something particular is I love their accents. I know that's a superficial thing, but and I know it applies to all Klingons, but something that Laurel has inspired me to do, a lifelong goal, like as long as I can remember, I've wanted to be able to speak Klingon. And and I've been inspired to do so. I've been listening to Laurel. Her accent is perfect. The dedication that all the actors, to be fair, have put into speaking Klingon. That no other actor in the whole of Star Trek has done what they've done. Has put in that level of work into speaking Klingon. And yeah, so that's been a huge inspiration. So I'm now on my 10-day streak on Duolingo of learning Klingon. I've been doing it every single day for at least half an hour, and I'm determined this time. I've been watching the Klingons. I've been watching Discovery with the subtitles on, and I don't know if it's going in, but it's been a big source of inspiration for me.
That's really cool. Annika, what about you? Are you I mean, you say you're a Klingon princess, so I assume that Klingon women resonate with you in some way.
Yes. I mean, I have said since Voyagers was on that B'Elanna Torres is my favorite Star Trek character of all time. And I really identified with her being the in-between, having this like very Klingon passionate side, and then a human like passionate in a different way. And so that's where my Klingon warrior part comes from. But I love the Blink and You'll Miss Her Chancellor Azetbur, and Kalar is absolutely amazing. And I will never get over them killing her off. And I'm really drawn to, I think what it is that Klingon women are not ashamed of themselves in any way. Even B'Elanna, who has like this dichotomy, and she like really struggles with her, her caught between two cultures and being ashamed of herself, but she isn't ultimately. She's proud, and she just has to accept that part of it, that it's okay to be proud. And I think that for me, that's just a really strong message, and something that I can, embrace and make me feel like I can be a Klingon warrior too, that I don't have to apologize for being myself in any way, that I can be loud sometimes, and I can disagree with people, and I can have my own opinions, and that I can even be rude if I need to. And that's okay. And it's an important message for me personally, as a woman in our society.
It absolutely
and raising two daughters.
Yes, absolutely. I have more to say about that, but I just real quick, I want to check in with Jeff, because what I have to say might go into another part of conversation. So Jeff, did you have anything to add as a man?
No, but I definitely recognize the confidence level in the Klingon women. I have to say I was a huge B'Elanna Torres fan too. I'm a big unapologetic Voyager fan, but I did love the B'Elanna character through the whole thing, and it's interesting to see how Klingon women have changed since the first ones we saw in TOS, and how they've developed over the course of Star Trek over all these years. So I love what all you guys said about this, and I don't want to talk too much about it myself, because my perspective is really not nearly as detailed and personal as yours.
Well, I appreciate you participating in the discussion. It's still important to have your feedback there. So yeah, when I think of L'Rell, and I've been playing the game with myself of like, what words come to mind when you think of the character of L'Rell? And I mentioned it already, but really the strongest word is agency. And what you've said, Annika and Sam, part of why Klingon women are so attractive is this ability to act for themselves. And then that's what agency is. It's just the ability to act for yourself, regardless of your gender. But, for women especially, and minorities, we don't always get to have agency. Our agency is often overshadowed or taken away by, partly by patriarchy, but also just I mean, essentially, it is that women and minority groups have lived lives of oppression, and so with that systemic oppression comes a lack of agency in many places, and so it's extremely empowering to see characters like Laurel and these other Klingon women who display that agency, that confidence, that ability to do what they want without worrying about threats of shame or offending someone. It's something that I think many women struggle with. And as we talked, well, not as we talked about before, but like you said, Annika, like worrying about, do I need to feel bad about being rude to someone? We're taught, oh no, you got to be nice to everyone, and smile, and all that fun stuff that no one wants to deal with. And so, like for me on a personal level, people who listen to DiscoTrek know what I've been through in the last year. And so being confronted with this character who has just that strong sense of agency has really helped empower me to find that for myself. And that has helped me in using my voice, even here on these podcasts. So in that way, it's helped me become more confident and helped me really change my life and my perspective. But the reason that I'm bringing up agency, like I said, at the beginning of the season, I felt that Laurel had a clear vision of where she wanted to go, even though we may not have been privy to her plan. We kind of knew that there was something happening, and we knew that she came from a house with manipulators in some way. And so watching the story develop over time, I think Mary actually said something really great in it's a Trek movie article. And she said that Laurel starts with plan A, B, and C, but usually reverts to X, Y, and Z. And so talking about season 2, that she will have a plan with how she's going to rule over the Klingon Empire and whatnot. And at that point, Mary didn't know a whole lot about season 2. So she's like, I'm very interested to see how it unfolds, as we all are. But some of the feedback that I heard about this first season was that by the end, it seemed like there was a lack of action from Laurel, and that I've heard things like she didn't work for it, which I really don't care about how that is phrased, but that basically the Klingon Empire was kind of placed in her lap. But going back and looking at her throughout the season, I don't necessarily feel that way. We may not have seen a master plan, but like I said, at the end, she was where I think she intended to be. What are your opinions on that? Do you think that she had this plan, and she, even taking these XYZ versions, like she eventually got to there? Do you think that she actually didn't want to be involved in the High Council, because she did say, like, I am no one, when she was given that leadership? So Annika, what's your opinion about the entirety of her arc and how she got to be the leader on the High Council?
Well, I have some issues with the last episode. The season finale, I think, was too short. I think it needed to be about a half hour longer to really fit in all of the story that they had left. And I think that given that, we would see more of Laurel's arc come to, so that she wouldn't be surprised with this, or she would be surprised with it, but we would have more time with her and seeing her accept it and decide what she was going to do with it, instead of going from "we're going to do this for you" to her doing it. Like, there's a scene that could be in between there, of Laurel sort of putting on the mantle of leadership so that she would be able to end the war. I mean, she does sort of end the war with an iPad setting. And that's, I understand why that's not, like, exciting for some people.
Right.
But I don't think it's like I'm not missing action. I'm not missing, like, I do think that she deserves it. I do think that she actually works very hard throughout the season. And I mean, I think I love the fact that she literally goes from prison to Queen of Klingons. It's like, it's amazing, you know, she was the person who made connections with Starfleet, like through Cornwell and Michael and even Tyler to an extent. Like, she bridged that gap, and that's why she's rewarded for it. She actually went out and said, okay, we're going to destroy each other, and they came back to her with that and said, okay, what if we come up with an idea for not destroying each other? What if we give you another plan, a plan Y? And she accepts it. And I think that that's proof that these people, and really they are, it's Michael, Cornwell, and Laurel, and the Empress, like, make these decisions. They're
the women. Sorry,
the women come and make all of the big moves in the end. And I mean, I think that's wonderful to see, and it's amazing, and it really comes together well. I just think it needed a few more scenes between those players, so that it wasn't. It's like they're parallel instead of. Like the scene. Those scenes are set up. There's a lot of setup in the earlier episodes, but then when we get to the finale, we don't have the payoff. It's just sort of a big speech, which is a great speech by Michael, but it's not. It would be better as a bunch of conversations, I guess, is what I'm saying.
No, I think that's a great point. And I know, like, for me, it's that I just thought that we were going to see more of Laurel's plan in a way that was very easy to identify. And then, like you said, like having that scene between where they're in the brig and then now Laurel is there on Kronos, having something in between there would really have helped get from point A to point B. And make that last scene a little bit more impactful, I guess. Or Sam, what about you? What did you think?
I thought it all came together beautifully at the end. I thoroughly enjoyed the ending, and I think looking back at Laurel's arch, things did actually go her way, other than the bit where Boke died. But if you look at the beginning, her main objective was to unify the Klingon people. That was what she wanted more than anything. That's how she thought she was going to save the Klingon Empire. And like all the best politicians in history, power's thrust upon them. They don't grab power, and that's kind of what Laurel did. She supported those who had similar political aims to hers. People like Tukuvma, then Vogue. And she helped steer them towards convincing them to unify all the great houses. She knew that's what needed to be done. The human in me says, "Oh, she likes unity. She sees strength in unity," as Uhura would say. And then I think, no, think like a Klingon. She knows that a divided people are a defeated people, and so I think she's very astute like that. And she worked throughout the entire season. No matter what happened to her plan was always back on track to unify all the houses. At the very end, she was able to do that. The only way she could do it was become leader. And I think she's saved the Klingon people, not how she wanted. I think she would have preferred to have been working in the background. Now she's got a forefront role in that. And I think what you were saying about agency, Heather, was brilliant and absolutely spot on. She had to act for herself in the end, despite the fact that I don't know how the House of Mokai is perceived, but it probably isn't great with their characteristics. So there are probably and it being a patriarchy as well, there are probably reasons why she probably didn't feel like from the beginning she should be leader, the same way Vogue didn't saw himself as an outsider. And she's found help in the Federation. I don't think she particularly cares so much about peace with the Federation. I think she does believe in the cause of the Klingon Empire and in putting their needs first. Actually, one of the questions I was going to ask the group was when she said she wanted to defect to Starfleet. Do you think she was genuine there, or do you think that was just a ploy to get on board, to try and get to Tyler? I'm not sure, but anyway, I'll just throw that out there. But that's I kind of thought it all came together for L'Rell at the end.
I definitely thought it was a ploy to get on board the ship and be with Tyler / Vogue. That's just my 2 cents.
No, I lean towards that, but as part of me does sometimes wonder. I think, is there something else there? I don't know.
And that's the great part about L'Rell, the layers and just not knowing these motivations, which I think, everything we're talking about now is just, it makes me so incredibly excited for season 2. But I wanted to get Jeff's perspective on this arc overall. What did you think, Jeff?
You guys already said a lot of things I was going to say. The one thing that I'll add to that, aside from the fact that I also agree that Discovery could have been maybe a couple of episodes longer to flesh out some of the things. But, back to the point about, she didn't earn it. I think anybody that says that she didn't earn it is basing it on, what they saw on the screen, but also something else that you can obviously glean from watching everything that happened on the screen is there was a lot that went on that was not on the screen. So we don't know what she did behind the scenes when we weren't seeing what she was doing. She morphed and changed a lot and wound up in different roles, doing different things, and her plan did come together. Of course, obviously, as you said, not in a way that she planned. So obviously there's a lot going on in the background that we were not privy to. I wish that we could have been more informed about the things that we didn't see, because obviously on DiscoTrek we talked about a lot of the things that we thought were going on that we weren't actually seeing. So, I think the whole arc could have benefited from a little bit more. I know they were constrained and they actually added episodes, but I wish they could have added a few more. So that we could have really seen all of that stuff.
I'm hoping that maybe in season 2 we'll get some flashbacks to the matriarchs.
Good call.
I know that for me that was a big, I was so excited to meet these matriarchs, and then we don't get any of that for obvious reasons. That would have given way too much away. But we don't really see her become the captain of that prisoner ship, and I know that actually threw off a lot of people. They thought that she was a different character by that episode. And so we don't see the matriarch stuff. We don't see her become captain of the ship. We do see her fighting with Lorca, Tyler, and Mudd, and then getting the scar, and then she gets demoted, Cole, sticks her in the brig where she meets Cornwell. And I'd like to talk about Cornwell a little bit before we end. But, she gets, like I said, she gets on the transporter, she gets on a Discovery, and though she's in the brig, she still has access to Vogue. And I think that part of where L'Rell changed a little bit from being this assured woman who wants to be behind the scenes, let me put it this way. Once she activated Tyler as Vogue, she didn't expect for it to backfire. She thought she would get onto Discovery, activate Vogue, and then they would, I guess, take over Discovery, or who knows what. But he didn't activate, not fully anyway. And so at that point, I think that, we're seeing signs of her relationship with Vogue. And of course, this is where the whole Vogue Tyler, is it sexual assault? Is it memories of consensual sex between L'Rell and Vogue? And I don't want to go into a huge discussion about that stuff. I think that L'Rell and Vogue certainly had a relationship, whether or not it was a, valid, healthy, they're in love type of relationship is sort of to be known. I think it's inferred. I know one of my absolute favorite scenes was early on when they were getting, what was it? The thing off of the Shinjo, and there was the very infamous "Shall we uncouple" scene, which I just absolutely loved. That chemistry that she had, and again that agency, because you can tell that the Rel is kind of making this relationship happen. Well, I don't want to say she's making the relationship happen. That's not quite the right words. She's planting the seeds, we'll say. But once we get into the Rel Tyler situation, just something changes with her, and that's why I think that in the end, she really never intended to be the leader of the Klingon Empire. When that's finally given to her, and she's like, I am no one, and just kind of in shock and awe that this is happening to her. That was just very revealing to me, and I think that scene in particular was just so indicative of her vulnerability, which I enjoyed seeing that. On one hand, we have this extremely confident woman, and yet we still have a vulnerable woman. And then even more so, we also have a sensual woman. And I don't know, I guess, did you guys see it too? Like, did you see this change in her when she lost Voke, basically? I don't know. Sam, did you see a difference?
She kind of had that moment in the brig, didn't she, where she kind of lost it a bit, and I thought, what, things haven't gone her way here. You could see that kind of switch in her, like that sort of searching in her mind. What do I do now? Yeah, I do know what you mean with when. I kind of actually liked her a bit better after Vogue had gone, in a way. It was like, I liked the way she seemed to be then fighting for herself. It was about Laurel first, in a way. She was no longer worshipping another man. She worshipped to Kufma, in a way. She referred to him as my lord.
Yeah.
She made Vok, literally made Tyler, and she worshipped him. And I was kind of actually quite glad when that was over, actually, and it was Laurel paving the way.
Annika, what do you think?
Yes, I agree with Sam that I think it was great once she was down to herself, because she did have to sort of accept that if the Klingons were going to be saved, it was going to be her, or if she was going to still have a part to play, I guess, because she wasn't really necessarily trying to save anyone at that point. But what I like is that, so I really, I love survivor stories. When they're built, there's a person who has a certain amount of whatever capital, however, people or wealth or whatever that they have, and it's taken away one by one. And I think that happens to really everyone in Discovery. But Laurel is very interesting because she retains, she doesn't let it get to her really until it is that losing Voke, and then she really does have to sort of accept that she's here. And to go back to Sam's question about defecting, I do think it was a ploy, but I also think that was her backup plan, that she was like, I'm going to go and I'm going to get onto the ship and I'm going to get Voke, but also I will be in a better position to continue my plans there than I will here in this, in being a disgraced Klingon who's been, the rest of her people are dead. And she's been left alive sort of as punishment, like, look, you got everybody in your household killed. It's like she has this, well, good thing I made that connection back in the cell, because I can go there now, and I still have an escape. I have Voke, and then I also have Starfleet, and I can still manipulate. I can still play this game. And it's interesting that she does sort of waver towards the end. And I think that again just makes her a stronger and more complex and interesting character, because she's she has so many dimensions. She has so many dimensions to her decision making, that she's not ever just happy or just fighting or just lost. Like, she's all of them at once.
I think the more that we talk about Laurel and Vogue / Tyler, before we started talking, I've been thinking about their relationship, and for me, I would rather Tyler have been his own character, and I would rather have seen Vogue and Laurel's relationship. And I think especially when it comes to things like Klingon sexuality, which I know Mary is really excited about being able to explore that, because it's not something that's really been explored within the scope of Star Trek. And Klingons are such, these Klingons, I think. Let me put it a weird way. I would be okay watching Klingon sex now. I think that these like the makeup is just so beautiful and alien and just gorgeous for me. There's something more there than, again, humans and Klingon makeup. It's not something that I really felt was missing from Star Trek, but I think that Laurel and Mary acting as Laurel could do justice to that. I just would rather have seen it with Vogue. And the more that we talk about this, I'm starting to feel like, did we really need Vogue / Tyler at all? Obviously, it was a plot point, and it was a vehicle that forwarded Laurel from one place to another. And at the end of the day, as we've highlighted, like I like her better on her own. But I wonder if I would have gotten more of what I wanted from the character without having that part of the plot there. Regardless, I'm still curious to see what happens in season 2, because we've got Tyler. Vogue is gone, as we're made to believe. However, Tyler still has some of these memories, and Tyler's relationship with Laurel is not quite Vogue's relationship with Laurel. But Jeff, you haven't gotten to chime in on the Vogue Tyler part. So what are your thoughts? Did you?
Well, no, you just gave me an interesting line of thought there. Maybe that wasn't that necessary, and they could have concentrated more on Laurel's character and developing that if they didn't have that plot point added in. That's a lot to think about. I don't know if I can come up with anything on the spot for that, but I don't know. I was not, overly excited about the transformation when he turned back, when he was activated and triggered and all the things that went with that. I kind of saw we kind of saw that coming for a while, and it wasn't a really well kept secret. Again, this is one of those things where we didn't see everything that transpired between the two of them. I mean, we lost track of them between the time that they came together and the time that the surgery was performed. And so we don't really know how the relationship developed. We're assuming that it developed in a relatively serious way. And I guess there was that anticipation, when he went through that she would eventually get him back once he was activated. And, when he was activated and it went awry, and she had to deal with the fact that, she wasn't going to get him back in the capacity that she thought she was. I could see the reaction. Going back to your original question, I could definitely see that reaction and the change, when she went through that realization. But I do like that thought, though, that maybe the Ash Tyler plotline wasn't necessary. It was kind of a MacGuffin in a way.
Yeah, the minute that we had that "shall we uncouple" scene, I was totally on board for Laurel Vogue, and really looking forward to seeing where that relationship was going to go. And as we've said, we didn't get to see that, although it seems fairly obvious that regardless of what Laurel's intention may have been in igniting the flame between the two of them, by the end of her time with Vogue, she definitely cared deeply for him. I think that was obvious, when Tyler did not activate as Vogue and everything. But obviously, the sex scene was between Laurel and Vogue, and some people had issues with seeing that scene just because it was sex in Star Trek. There's been plenty of sex in Star Trek before, maybe not so graphic that we saw it in that way. And then we had the shot of the Klingon boobs that I'm tired of hearing about. Like that scene was a lot more than Klingon boobs. I think it would have been better served had that just been between Laurel and Vogue, and then I don't know. I'm like trying to rewrite the whole thing now or something. I like Ash Tyler as a character. I think that what they're trying to do with Ash Tyler is commendable in many ways, dealing with someone that has PTSD. I think that a lot of it gets lost because of the way that they've done it here. But I think I would have liked to have seen Laurel and Vogue, and then, at the end of the day, I still like this, Laurel winding up having to take over her destiny and being thrust, as Sam said, having this responsibility thrust upon her and in a way that she didn't expect. So I don't know. I think that, did anybody have any other thoughts on the Laurel, Vogue, Tyler parts? Feel free to chime in.
I think the Laurel Ash and Vogue thing was essential. Actually, I think it covered so many aspects for so many characters. I don't know if there was any other way it couldn't have happened. I completely second your motion, Heather, for more Klingon sex. Particularly interested in the male anatomy after that last episode. Yeah, totally up for that. And yes, I thought there were some interesting aspects about the whole Vogue Tyler thing. The fact that we now have someone who can bridge the divide between the Federation, someone who understands the Federation and the Klingons, and who brings out demons in Michael Burnham, was brought on board by Lorca. I think there's some really interesting aspects. I think something what I wonder we have to be prepared for is what if Laurel was inappropriate, did assault Tyler? Are we prepared for that? I don't know if I am. I don't think I am.
No. No. That for me, like, I don't know if you guys listened to that episode of DiscoTrek, but I mean, I'm an assault survivor. I'm a sexual abuse and assault survivor. And so that scene was just extremely difficult for me, because for me, that scene did not feel like rape or sexual assault.
Okay.
It felt like it was told or viewed more from Laurel's perspective. However, like when I polled people about it and basically said, did you feel that it was assault, and or if you didn't know that it was assault, would it seem like assault to you, or would it just seem like sex? And I'm not going to go into the details of what sexual assault is like, because I don't ever want to see that involved in Star Trek. I mean, there is actually a history of sexual assault instances in Star Trek, but not to the degree that I have personally experienced. However, I would have been totally okay with seeing that scene as consensual sex between Vogue and Laurel. But the way that it was done in this episode, I don't think was all that great. I think it serves the story of Tyler more, and we'll talk about that when we do our deep dive on Tyler. But that's the one part that I really struggled with, because in that light, then I saw Laurel as someone assaulting someone else, and that really hurt me as someone who loved that character so much, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I feel the same. I'd be quite devastated too.
I think that it was poorly done, in my opinion. Not the scene itself, but the way that it came off as like, I agree with you. I think it was consensual, but Tyler in that moment saw it as assault. And that's my issue, is that they chose to have the character experience it as a memory of an assault. And that means, like, but then a couple episodes later, that is sort of weakened by him coming to this conclusion that he was actually this other person. Yeah. And so I just seems like a really, they crossed a line that they didn't necessarily have to cross. Yeah. If they, the story, I agree that it serves Tyler more. And I think that I think I can see it without Vogue Tyler, or maybe with two separate folks, one's Vogue and one's Tyler, because I do think that it seems it was more clever. Someone said it was a MacGuffin. Like, I agree. Like, it was a plot point than it was a storyline. And I think that the acting saves it. Like, they all of the actors involved did really well. Yeah. With a questionable plot.
Yeah. And I think on the heels of that, like, it's important to emphasize that, like, this wasn't the actor's decision. Like, my frustration with this scene has nothing to do with Mary or Shazad. I question just kind of where it came from within the writer's room, because at the end of the day, I know that they're not intending to send people into flashbacks of their sexual assault, and or put people in a position where they're saying this is sexual assault, when I know for a fact that no, that is not what sexual assault looks like. Had the scene been like the torture scene, if you slow down those segments and watch them, which someone did somewhere on Facebook, they are horrific. I have never been tortured, but what I see, and you don't get the full impact in real time, but slowing it down, that is, I think, probably a pretty accurate representation of what a flashback of being tortured may be. Whereas this flashback of sexual assault absolutely was not, at least for me. And I can only speak for me in this subject. But at the end of the day, it just frustrates me because, like I said, like, Mary has talked about the fact that she's very excited by Laurel's sensuality and sexuality. And she wants to express that because, Klingons are not human beings. And so they're very different. Like, what's the t-shirt? Vulcan in the streets, Klingon in the sheets, that we all, laugh at and joke about. And I might have a t-shirt similar to that. But we've never really explored that. And I'm totally okay exploring that. I just think that this could have been handled better. But I don't want to, like, harp over this scene way too much. I hope that, at least for Mary, that she gets to bring back that sensuality or sexuality in a more positive way for season 2. And with Tyler and Laurel going off together, I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with the two of them in season 2, because his memories of her, even though he recognizes what they are now, to him, they still were, assault and torture. So that relationship is already pretty damaged. And I was somewhat surprised to see him go off with her. I know that now he very much feels like an other, and that he doesn't have a place in Starfleet, or with the Discovery crew. So I'm curious to see what happens, but yeah, I appreciate your perspective, Annika. I appreciate everyone's perspective, but it's nice to know that I'm not alone in feeling that scene could have been done better or differently, or not at all, and especially from another woman. Okay, did anybody have any final comments about I think we kind of went over that. But Sam, any final thoughts there?
No, I think I'm covered there. Thank you.
So a quick final thing that I want to give some attention to is Laurel and Cornwell. And part of this is just I feel like the Laurel Cornwell relationship was for Laurel definitely the most impactful woman to woman relationship for her. I think that the two of them found, I guess, a familiarity somewhere in there, and so as we know, Laurel basically confided in Cornwell that she wanted to defect and was trying to get Cornwell to help her do all of that. And at the end of the day, we don't see a lot in that final episode because Cornwell is captured. And I'm sure we'll see more of Cornwell in season 2. But I just had to throw out some appreciation, A, for that relationship between the characters, and then B, the way that Mary and Jane have elevated, I guess, that relationship, as actors, and just as human beings. Like they have so much fun with it on stage. And I was not at the panel with the two of them at STLV, but I know that, and I don't know if Mary was supposed to be on that panel or if she came out and they reenacted the Scream together. I don't know. Sam, were you there for that?
I was there for that, yes, and it was a fantastic moment. They absolutely nailed it.
Awesome. So did you have any thoughts on the relationship between those characters? Was it kind of a standout for you like it was for me?
Yeah, it was. And I can't quite pinpoint or articulate why that is. I think they were both two powerful, kick-ass people who were suddenly very vulnerable, very much in danger, and they had to think of a way out of that situation. And they did that very quickly, and they had to build up trust very quickly. And they did that. You could see them trying to suss each other out. Is this person going to back me up? And they achieved it, and they gained each other's respect very quickly. I thought it worked very well, and I thought the two actors did a fantastic job portraying that. I hope to see more of them.
Yes, Annika, what about you?
Okay, so I am not even a little bit normal about my obsession with Katrina Cornwell. And so I, like Laurel, I was intrigued with right away, but I didn't really have a handle on her until really the end of the season, or in my second watch, really, is when I was like, okay, I get Laurel now, and I'm on board with her. Whereas Katrina, I immediately was drawn to. I was intrigued by her, but I was also like, I know who you are, even though you're this random side character who's probably going to die. I really loved her immediately. And then that scene, their first scene together in the prison, was just like, it remains my favorite part of Discovery. I need the extended version to be part of the Blu-ray because I just can't even handle it. But when they roar at each other, it's they understand each other. It's this completely amazing. We don't speak the same language, but we are the same, on some level. We understand call it a warrior heart or whatever. And they respect each other because of that. And, even when they're fighting for their lives, there's this whole level of honor that's going on. And they're scrappy and I just, everything about them is amazing. And then the later scene in the prison again is just, Laurel sees her and it's like, oh, you survived. Of course you did. And Cornwell says, you got where you wanted to be. And it's sort of like, of course you did. They understand each other on this level that's beneath their language and beneath their body language even. It's like this weird spiritual thing. And I need more of it. And it's my favorite thing in the world. And I could talk about this for hours but it wouldn't make any sense. It would just be me babbling. So I'll stop, but
It's okay. We'll have you on. Well, we don't rig our results, but when we do a Cornwell episode, I'll make sure you comment 1,000 times or something.
is to be known as, yes, she's my admiral and I love her. I'm
love
her
it.
fan.
Love it. I hope she listens. Mary, have her listen. Make sure that she listens to hear about this. Okay, Jeff, any thoughts from you on Laurel and Cornwell?
Well, the only thing I'll add is that I felt that was the escape was one of the best written and acted sequences in a lot of Discovery. It was great. It was wonderfully done, wonderfully acted. Just I remember talking about it on DiscoTrek a lot, so again, I don't want to rehash all the stuff that I've already said about it, but great points by everyone all around.
Yeah, I've got to follow up what Annika said with it's these two women just recognizing each other's strength and resilience and ability to survive. And I'm the kind of woman that I like to support other women. I don't like cattiness. I don't like trying to tear other women down. I'm all about helping build one another up, because we've all had lifetimes of being beaten down, basically. And so women who empower other women are very much my thing. And that's very much the tone of the relationship between Cornwell and Laurel, even though they are so different. And from the Federation, from the Klingon Empire, different species, different goals, but they still recognize those very basic elements. And they're both survivors, and so that relationship is, and it's very powerful to watch on screen, and it becomes even more powerful to see that appreciation, camaraderie, and just that sense of fun between Mary and Jane in person. So I look forward to seeing them reunite. They better reunite, and if they both make it to STOV next year, I want my photo op. Like, I tried so hard for that photo op, and it did not happen. But one day we will have the what is their Cornrel. There we go. The corn, and we will all scream. That will be, yes. There will be so many pictures of women just screaming in this photo, and I think that's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. All right. Well, thank you both so much for joining us to talk about Laurel. I love her. I think we all love her. Like, we love Laurel, we love Mary. I know that we're all excited to see what happens in season 2. So until then, if people want to carry on the conversation, Sam, where can they find you online?
They can find me at Trekkie Girls on just about most social media, Twitter and Facebook in particular.
Excellent. And then Annika, where can people find you?
I am Pixie Dane most places, particularly Tumblr and Facebook and Instagram. But on Twitter, I'm Manic Pixie Dane. Pixie Dane was taken. And my web portal that has links to everywhere else is manicpixiedust.com.
I love it. I love that. All right, Jeff, where can people find you?
Well, as always, I'm Warp Factor Jeff on Twitter. You can find me in the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas convention group, along with all of our friends, and on the tricordertransmissions.com.
Well, imagine that. You can find me in all of those very same places. I am LLA Posper on Twitter, and then our show is Disco_Trek on Twitter. Be sure to follow us and keep an eye on the feed, because I will send out a poll and you will determine our next character deep dive. So that will be coming soon. And just make sure, if you're not already a member, to come join us at the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas convention group. Not only will we somehow get you on the podcast, but we will get you to STLV, because if you have not gone, you don't know what you're missing. And I know that all of us here can say it's the time of your life, and we definitely want to see you there. So until next time, live long and prosper, and long live the Empire.